it is very disrespectful if you're having a conversation where two people have different perspectives, not to clearly represent both design options and like the pros and cons clearly. It massively triggers me. I think it's very disrespectful to the person because you're saying maybe this person isn't as smart. Like I think I've forgotten what philosopher says that the sign of intelligence is the ability to hold two competing ideas in your head at the same time.
One option is not an option, right?
Yeah.
It's just saying this is the only way this thing is going to happen, right? And in the context of a team where you have other people and you want people to give you feedback on saying, okay, think about this way, think about it this way, you have to have thought about other things. Even if those ways are not the best ideas, even if there are clear flaws with those, it's important to always have different proposals. Yeah.
There is only so much of a cognitive load people can keep in their head at once. So like Umar said, if there are 4 design options and they are not on paper and you are vocalizing them, by option 4, like even if you write them, they've forgotten it.
Yeah.
Now, if you vocalize it, somebody cannot like go and say, hey, what was the first thing? Number 1, number 2, like a meeting is a really, really bad space to get alignment. Because if you're hitting people with an idea for the first time in a meeting, they will ask questions that will genuinely probably sound stupid.
The more you write, the better you become. The more you write, the more you share it, the more feedback you get, the more concise you start to like.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Beyond the Build. I'm here with my co-host, Umar, and we're going to be talking today about some things that you do besides writing code as usual. So on today's episode of Beyond the Build, we will cover writing and communication. But essentially what we're trying to capture today is like the importance of how you get things that are in your head to other people's heads, and like all the steps and all the procedures around doing that. I generally say like a lot of the time when you're thinking something, think of it as a virus, and then you think about like how do you get that idea virus into other people's heads and get them thinking about the same thing that you're thinking about. So basically all of the processes that we both have thought about that we think help with like sharing the idea virus or communicating really well.
First, I think we should probably just start with the Uber point, right? I think everyone probably knows this, but why is communication important? Specifically, why is writing important in what we do as software engineers?
That's really good. So I think the first thing that you talk to a software engineer is like, oh, so how do we do this? And they tell you, oh, there are 20 ways to do it.
Yeah.
And then after that first decision, there are 20 other decisions and 20 other decisions.
Yeah. And
the main thing is the prospective solution space is very large. And the solution that you want to engineer to is a narrow part in that space. So why you're communicating is to take you and other people on a journey to navigate the possible solution space to solving a problem is my own mental model of what communication is.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think as it relates to writing, it's the easiest way to share information that is asynchronous, right?
Oh, fair.
When it comes to, hey, I have this idea, I have this thought, how do I get it to as many people as possible?
Yeah.
And how do I get it in a way that isn't time constrained, where I don't need to be seeing them face to face, or I don't need them to be in the same room with me, right? Or a way that I can just get it, like you said, get that mind virus to them, right? That's typically why writing is very, very important. I think to also add to what you said with regards to navigating all those possible solutions, even when you are in person and you're talking and there's like, oh, we can do this, or we can do this, or we can do that, or we can do that. By the time you mention the fourth solution, the first one is already out of your head, right? So it's always very, very useful to have something written down that basically lists everything. That way you can always just jump back to the one above and basically look through everything at once, as opposed to just having just one thing, right? Or like, oh, we could do this, but then what did you say that first one was? But I thought we were going to do this. Everything is in the document. You just go back to read it. And that's why writing is super, super important.
I would also think that the thing is this, right? Like, definitely one of the previous episodes we had a conversation about meetings, and meetings are important, but the main thing to think about is there is only so much of a cognitive load people can keep in their head at once. So, like Umar said, if there are 4 design options and they are not on paper and you are vocalizing them, by option 4, like even if you write them, they've forgotten it.
Yeah.
Now, if you vocalize it, somebody cannot like go and say, "Hey, what was the first thing?" Number 1, number 2, like a meeting is a really really bad space to get alignment, because if you're hitting people with an idea for the first time in a meeting, they will ask questions that will genuinely probably sound stupid because you spent like weeks thinking about it, but in reality they are navigating that solution space. And so imagine the solution space is a circle. Everybody's going on a different weird tangent. A document pulls everybody on a single thread, but if you don't make that effort, if the first time they are seeing that material is in that document, they're gonna start to go on different weird tangents, and like the tangents make sense from where they're coming from. So the document, and having a document and probably having a document reviewed before, just gives them a clear thread of like, hey, this is how I'm thinking about this, and then helps them work through, and then gives them enough context. I think we'll talk about that later, but gives them enough context that they can navigate the documents correctly.
Yeah, I think in the context of, I think all docs should have this feature now, but in Google Docs specifically, that's what I mostly use. You can highlight certain things and like comment on them, right? So it also gives a space for you to have that back and forth. I've seen so many documents where they're like maybe 10, 15 just back and forth, and you can go and read it and just get a lot of context as to where this person is coming from, or why you should think about things a different way, or maybe just like helping you view things, right? And all of that happened asynchronously, right? I think a lot of it also happened way back, right? Like I'll give you an example. There's an incident manual at Netflix for all of Netflix, right? And so I am very sure you guys have one at Zillow too. Those are living documents. The idea is that they're always evergreen. So you would go and you see the last time someone updated this document and then what they added and all that stuff. And it gives you like a history of how things have evolved. All of that cannot be done except someone wrote it in some place, right? And yeah, that's another point that I wanted to call out, because it just shows the importance of having just everything in your head on paper. As Okwe said, we'll dive into what you should actually be putting in there and how you should be thinking about explaining certain things, but that's just something I wanted to call out as well.
Just corroborating something Umar just said, I think I want to double click on. The thing is, you have an idea or you have something you want to get done. It doesn't just live in the spaces you're in. It lives in spaces outside of you. So your manager goes to a meeting with his manager and talks about that. Your PM goes, talks about that. Your teammate goes, talks to somebody else, talks about that. All those conversations, if you don't put a doc in there, well, every single one of those meetings goes in a different tangent.
Yes.
And you can't pull them together, but you can't also get like the conversations that they are having pulled into one single like view. Having a document is actually a stake in the ground. And like this goes back to like me, for example, I think I'm kind of aggressive about like, hey, let there be just one document. Like if your manager has an opinion about it, put it in that same document. Your PM has an opinion.
Tabs, you can have multiple tabs within there, but the second, as long as they're all in one place that everyone has access to. Yeah.
Because the discoverability of documents, like you can't discover somebody's idea in a different document. Finding that stuff is hard. So put it in a document, but then like having other people reference and have their conversations via the document, or with the document as the central force around which all those conversations are had is ridiculously powerful.
It really is. Yeah, I completely agree. So now that we've kind of like indexed on why a document is important, which is very interesting, because in my head, I think it depends on what organization and what type of company you're in, right? And depends on the type of problems you're solving and the scale. But I can remember very early in my career, documents weren't as super important, because it was just, there's this small thing. All right, this is what needs to happen. And we never overly indexed on documents, right? But now that I'm in a different space, documents are the first thing that I think of. I actually just finished writing my article today about why about how I now write documents for anything that I want to work on, because it just helps me think through certain things. But let's kind of like chat about what should be in those documents depending on what you are trying to convey, right? Depending on the information that you're trying to give.
Yeah, that's a very good thing. So something I'm going to call out is like documents definitely have different purposes, right?
Yeah.
So so for example, you can have an incident document. You could have like a PRFAQ. You could have a design doc. You could have a run book. They all carry out different purposes, right? So I think we should try to contextualize like what are you trying to write for generally, and make it super generic. So for example, something I'll tell you is like if you're writing like run books, incident logs, they have like decent templates. So for example, an incident document or an RCA will probably say, hey, like the popular convention there is to do 5 whys.
Yeah.
So like go through the 5 whys things and have opinions about why 5 whys is a bad idea anyways. Because like most things, complex systems don't have one single root cause, right? It's like 5 different things and that's a different conversation. But like incident documents, for example, right? You're thinking 5 whys, you're thinking how did you find out it was a problem? You're thinking capturing impact, stuff like that. On the other hand, if you're doing a PRFAQ or Amazon style 6 pages.
Wait. What does PRFAQ mean?
Oh yeah. Okay. Let's go.
You know?
PRFAQ means press release / frequently asked questions. It's an Amazon style thing of when you want to design or build something big, you first start with the PRFAQ. Like, how will you announce this stuff on day launch, right? And what questions will they ask? Or like, will you expect somebody to ask and answer them, right? So essentially saying like, hey, before we even build anything, before we even do much, let's talk about how the announcements will go. Because I think sometimes you've done a lot of stuff and you get to the end and you're like, maybe we shouldn't even have done that.
Yeah.
But like the PRFAQ actually like turns it back on its head. It's like, hey, do the PRFAQ first.
Yeah.
Do the Amazon style 6. Like Amazon has a ridiculously good writing culture.
Yeah. They be writing.
But and also like a reading and writing culture.
Yeah.
Almost nowhere else will you find that. So if you work in, like Felix mentioned, if you work in Amazon, you're really lucky for, and like obviously it's a very important part of their culture. I work in a place where like nobody gonna read your writing. Ain't nobody gonna read your writing.
Yeah.
Like it's really hard to get people to read your writing. It's really, really hard. It's like, yeah. So so PRFAQs, for example, writing PRFAQ, there are structures around that, right? So the meta model, the meta model for that is think about what document you're trying to write and then what structures work. Designs, for example, when I design documents, I like to design in C4. So C4 is context, components. I can't recall the other 2 things. But I like to design stuff in C4 because like it just shows, you start with like, what does the ecosystem look like? What are the big software systems? And then what are the components of that software that I'm going to build, right? So like think about the design, the correct thing for what document you're trying to write, and then try to write for that. Like C4, look for documents. Like the truth is, there is no perfect way.
Yeah.
PRFAQ has its flaws. Whatever other system have their own flaws, right? The main thing is pick a stake in the sand. What works in your company, and then now what? Like if you're in a place where there is no internal structure, or your team or your org doesn't really have internal structure, pick one thing, consistently design to that thing, and then try to set it. People tend to just follow the bandwagon. To be very honest, if you start something, they're going to do it as well.
Yeah, I completely agree because when I think about all the docs that I've written, I typically try to go see, okay, I'm trying to write the doc about this. What type of other documents like this exist and can I follow the format? Sometimes you can't because it's kind of like what I'm writing about is completely different.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of like think about it, okay, what information do I want to convey? And if I was on the other side of it, how would I want to receive this information, right? If I am doing a design document, for example, Okwe had mentioned this earlier, but it's super, super important and something that my own manager preaches on. He tells this over and over and over again, and it's kind of like our team things, right? Don't just present one option, right? If you give one option, one option is not an option, right?
Yeah.
It's just saying this is the only way this thing is going to happen, right? And in the context of a team where you have other people and you want people to give you feedback on saying, okay, think about this way, think about it this way, you have to have thought about other things. Even if those ways are not the best ideas, even if there are clear flaws with those, it's important to always have different proposals. Yeah.
Okay, so this thing you're saying now, I am very triggered.
Yeah.
I'll tell you a few things. I think it is very disrespectful if you're having a conversation where two people have different perspectives, not to clearly, like, especially when they're design options, not to clearly represent both design options and like the pros and cons clearly. It massively triggers me. I think it's very disrespectful to the person, because you're saying maybe this person isn't as smart. Like, I think I've forgotten what philosopher says that the sign of intelligence is the ability to hold two competing ideas in your head at the same time. And like, I genuinely, like, if you have a preference for one thing versus another thing, I think for both of those things you should list pros and cons. So when you're doing a design and getting people to a decision in a meeting, maybe you don't want to indicate your preference, maybe you want to, that's whatever works for you. But I think you should clearly say, hey, these are the pros, these are the cons, and then get everybody on the same page. Because like, I've read documents where somebody says, hey, this is the thing I prefer, and write a document against one idea, but they don't represent a pro and con. Yeah. If you're in a place where they let that slide, I call that engineering by bullying. Yeah. Because I've seen that happen. That has happened to me as well. And essentially it's like, hey, I don't think your idea is good enough to deeply consider it and list pros and cons. I'm just going to list all the cons of your ideas and not list the pros of my ideas. And like, sometimes the people win as well, because like sometimes they might be more senior than you. But it's a very terrible, disrespectful way of writing, to be very, very honest. Like, I think if you say somebody has one way of thinking about something, you have a different way. Like, and you don't even have to put you can have the person put their own pros and cons, right? Like, and you can balance it out. But like, you have to represent multiple ideas as well as you can. Because the way I think about it is, when I talk to my manager about it, I talk to my manager and I call it a decision support document. If you're writing a document to support a decision, you essentially have to say, like Omar called out, right? Like, you say, hey, these are, and you don't want to have like 20 options, because that doesn't make any sense. Put like 3 or 4 options. The really good ones, yeah, exactly. And then say, hey, these are the pros, these are the cons. Put them maybe separately, but generally people think better in tables. So even if you have like a section for each one, the comparisons somehow make it so that you can say, on this particular axis, how does A compare to B, compare to C, compare to D? And then like, just put that, because to be honest, you're working with the constraints of like people's bandwidth during a meeting, or people's bandwidth when they're reading documents. And something I didn't mention earlier is the way you structure your document should also support that, right? So like, if you use Google Docs, there is a way you could like header 1, header 2, header 3, header 4, header 5, make them the same header level, so they are side by side in the document navigation tab on the left. This is weird describing it this way. But the main thing is, remember, you want to present it in a way that is really, really easy for somebody that is, especially the decision support document, to compare all of those options along a single axis. So maintainability, cost, complexity, all that stuff. Put them very clear, and then just have A, B, C, D. And then when somebody looks at them at a glance, they can see and make choices and have a conversation with you about why they're making those choices. Yeah,
I think that's very important to call out. As it relates to the options, though, it's more like proposals, for lack of a better way of putting it, right? Yeah. It's like, I am proposing that we do this thing this way. We could do it this way. We could do it this way, and then add the pros and the cons. I generally prefer if there is a preferred option in there, if that makes sense. So it's like, you're coming to me with this 4 options. At this point, you know more. You probably have spent more time thinking through all of these options than I have, and I'm now relying on your judgment to tell me what the best one is, right? And you then have to not necessarily justify it, but even in a document, right? You could quickly state why this is better than this one, or why you're leaning more towards this option. And people who will read the document can then go highlight and say, well, if that's the case, then maybe we may want to come. Like, so it's kind of like farming for dissent, right? It's like you've put everything in there and you're kind of like taking a side. You're kind of like picking an option, because if you don't do that and you have everything that's in there and you don't have a prepared one, then you're kind of welcoming opinions and people will be like, okay, so which one are we going to go with because of this, right? So that's my decision, or that's why I do prefer having a preferred option in there and a short description as to why that one is the most preferred option.
So I think of it as slightly differently. I usually aim at a couple of different things. So for me, for example, right, I'll say when I have the design options, like, so think of a document as a living thing, right? So put the design put the options there. I get the point of a preference, but I think there are different stages to how a document evolves. So at my team level, for example, when I put the design options there, I will not put a preferred option, partly as a balance for there are people that essentially will automatically default to what preferred option you wrote, especially like if you've been on the team for a while and they have a lot of respect for you. They do not dissent, or they will not dissent, because they won't go with a critical and eye as possible. So if you review your preference, they'll go like, yeah, but this person has thought about it more than I have. And then they automatically do that. If you don't put a preferred option and then you say, you call a meeting, obviously there's a scale problem with this anyways, but like you call a meeting with maybe your small team or a couple of stakeholders and then you walk them through and then you say, hey, let me know what you think about this option. Maybe in 2 days after after the meeting, after I've talked through all the options and I've put the trade-off document, then we make a decision together. The problem with I think early on when you put the options there, like making a decision and saying your preference might put you in a spot where, first of all, you revealed your hand. Anybody that disagrees with your opinion or the option you've picked might start to disagree with a bunch of other things as well. You kind of want to, not just because you're hedging, right? Like you could maybe at the end of the meeting say, before everybody votes, say, hey, I kind of prefer this. But I think you want to give people the opportunity to actually independently think about this, about what you've put. Obviously, it depends on the company. If you're in a company, people are willing to fight you, and people have like strong opinions, yeah, they will do that. But if you're in a place where like people haven't formed as strong of an opinion, I generally don't think it's a good idea to put your preference until like when we decide as a team, or like when we decide as an org that this is what we're gonna do, then we can put a preference in there. And then honestly, like I think the document for decisioning and the document for like direction are different. Like they can be inside the same Google Doc, but
they're kind of like
they're different tabs. Yeah.
Okay.
So they're different tabs. So like there's a design section, and then there's this is what we decided, and this is what we're going to design based off of.
Yeah. So that makes sense. I think it just points to the different cultures within the company. I think for where I'm coming from is from a place of an informed captain, if that makes sense. So when we write documents for proposals, you are going to farm for dissent, and in order for people to kind of like properly give you dissent, they need to know which direction that you want to head into, and then you use that to try to say, okay, well, based on this feedback, then I'll then go this way, or based on that feedback, then I'll then go this way, right? At the end of the day, you have to make the decision.
In the culture of the place you're at.
Exactly, right? So at the end of the day, you have to make the decision to say, this is how we're going to do it. Like literally, this is so wild to me. This is something I think is very interesting. Like rather, there's option A, B, C, D, E, all the way till J. You pick option A. Everybody tells you option A is horrible, right? But you still want to go with option A. You can choose to go with option A. If something then happens in the future and option A then causes issues, your judgment is not seen as good. Yeah. Right. But I think in the context of the culture of where I work, it's very much you make the decision. You go and farm for dissent. Rather, you go with the option, say this is what I want to do. People tell you, maybe do, and then you then go, right? So it's very much designed to shorten all that fighting that happens in this thing where it's like, oh, this person says don't do it. Like, Baba, if you talk from now till tomorrow morning, this is what I say I'm going to do, right? So how do we then want to go about it, right? Do we then want to say, okay, we'll disagree, but commit to then help you make this decision that you've chosen the best one, or you just say, okay, my hands are off, this is you. So I think it all boils down to understanding the culture of the place that you're in. But speaking of writing, I also want to call out something where I think depending on who you're writing for, the context and how you write certain things can be important. I know I like writing about the technical things. I like throwing the diagrams in there. I like going to Excalidraw. I love Excalidraw. I love going to Excalidraw, just doing all the shading, doing all the this, and I'm like, oh, this is so good. And then sometimes I'm like, can I convey the same information with in less time or in less detail, right? Felix said this when he was here. What is the person the audience who I'm trying to write this thing to, what do they need to make an informed decision or to be educated enough about this thing, right? You can't throw a million information at people, and based on what's in there as well, the stakes, the impact of doing it, the impact of not doing it, right? And how you explain those things will differ based on who you are writing to. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll say, like, when you're working on like a decentralized project, I genuinely think you should keep all the different personas in one document, but inside that document, you have a tab that says executive summary or something. Yeah. Or like, I call that start here, for example, an intro or something. And then you put all the high-level things that somebody that is not your manager, it's above your manager, somebody that wants to get a 50-foot view of it will go understand. So you're saying, hey, what are the risks? What's the impact of this decision? What are like the trade-offs? What are we not choosing? What explicitly are we not doing? And then you put that in there, right? And then that is their own space, man. Let them argue and stuff. Let them see that stuff and let them form an opinion there. Then on the other hand, like you have like your teammates or like engineers at your level or around that level or something, or like your DevOps people or stuff that want to see like technical complexity, right? They want to see like, hey, like this is this, because like, again, right, remember, like a big solution space, they have opinions that mean that you have to, for the database, you have to be this, for the backend, you have to be this. So like they have strong opinions about some things you have to hit. You kind of also want to cater to them as well, right? So again, it is one big, it's actually like multiple documents within a document. They're just all collected within Google Sheets. But essentially you're saying, hey, this is like my design doc. And you're aiming for technical accuracy. You want to be like, this is completely correct. So you can obviously imagine that you don't want that in the same tab as when you're talking to your executives. Yeah. Because like if your executive has to switch context to that level, you're getting like a different, you're getting someone you don't want to get. Yeah.
They typically don't care, or it's not their job to care about the technical details of how something will be done unless it's so huge that it changes the direction of how the entire company is going or something like that, right? So in those cases, a quick TLDR, right? For them on, okay, this is what we're going to do, right? Figure out what is important for them and then have that in a separate tab. And then for your engineers, for your team, for sister teams, for your stakeholders, right? For people who you'll work with, for example, have a different view that then caters to what you think they'll need from this design, right? Like I could be doing this very, very complex thing that's going to touch everybody everywhere. But in reality, the people who it will impact the most only need to know this part. They only need to know how it will impact them, because guess what? They have their own things they are doing. Yeah. Limit limit all the churning that has to go on in your head, right? Let them intentionally try to go and find those extra things so that you don't add more to what they're already doing. Like I basically think about it for myself, right? If a team is coming to tell me, hey, one of your Java Spring Boot packages is having this issue, right? There's this campaign for you to do X, Y, and Z. Whatever document that's in there will just tell me, okay, these are the repos that you need to go and change, right? This is where you need to change it. Then you need to go in your code and any place that there's like, just boom, like that's what I want in the document. Part of me wants to care about why it's a problem, but I have other things to do, right? Yeah. So just figure out what it is that the stakeholders that you are writing to care the most about, and kind of like cater certain parts of the document or certain parts of what you're writing to them.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Like, yeah, if you if you're doing spray and pray and you're not essentially like targeting like being very explicit about how this document. So for example, somebody says, hey, we are doing this platform thing, and then they give you like 600 lines of context. It's the worst thing in the world. So it's like, I'm
Why do
stealing
I
your
care?
time.
Yeah.
Like the way I think about it is like, so this is a platform perspective. But if you're doing platform work, the people that you support are SMEs or experts in some tiny thing that they just have to use your platform to get their own thing done. Don't pull them down to your platform level understanding of stuff. Let them stay at the surface level understanding of how your complex system works.
Yeah.
And just give them the clear directions for them to do it. Like the moment, like we call this paved path at work, but like
Same.
call out the paved paths to get the thing they want done. Like just make the paved path super obvious. And that way they don't spend 2 weeks figuring this stuff out. And also they don't make mistakes because you might say, hey, correct this thing, but then they end up correcting it by overcorrecting, right? You're just like, hey, instead of using log4j, use this or that thing, right? SLF4j, or use like bam, simple like that. And then this is how to swap it in a sample repo. And nobody has to spend, like, because if you think about it, right, like, especially if you work on a platform type team or you're doing platform type work, you could invest 3 hours of your time and you know this stuff very well. Or you could have a team that's downstream of you spend 12 hours of their time. I could have like 30 teams or 12 teams or 7 teams spend 12 hours of their time and all make slightly different things that just makes life harder for everybody in the long term. Just make the paved path as easy to find as possible.
Completely agree. Speaking of making things easy to find as possible, I think that's something that you should always be doing as you write your documents, right? Making certain information straightforward, easy to find. But what are some other things that you should definitely be doing and some pitfalls that you see when people are writing certain types of document?
Okay, so I'll just start with the obvious biggest one. I beg you, please, don't give me crazy ChatGPT stuff as a document. I beg of you. I don't want your chat logs. I struggle to. So the real problem with like AI stuff is not like that AI is not accurate or not. The problem is that your banter with the AI, the very rough AI, make this draft for me. That stuff has a cost for me to read and understand it. When the AI gives you a 14-pager or a 13-pager, for you, right, you did the interaction. For me, I am going through a 13 or 16-pager. But so I go through a 13 or 16-pager. You clearly did not write it. You have way too much detail for where we are in the evolution of what we are trying to do. So I'm like, you're triggering the person. So for example, is like, say, hey, we're trying to tune a bloom filter, for example. And then you have like 5 tuning options in there as a sample for something that is still very theoretical. I'm like, okay, so are you saying like it's too much, like we said, like the audience, too much details that for an audience of that is as an engineer like you, you're putting a stake in the ground with a lot of those things, right? So I think it's probably best to like when you are writing a document, please interact with AI as much as possible before you write the doc. Have the AI maybe fine-tune it, but if it is first, like obviously control for brevity or for length, but it definitely shouldn't be just AI dump that you're sharing with people. It's very infuriating because it takes everybody else. You interact with the AI for 30 minutes and then you ask all of your teammates to read a 13-page document. If 5 people read that, a 13-page document probably takes like 2.5 hours to read and understand correctly. So look at how much you're blowing stuff.
How much time that you're taking. Yeah, exactly. I think the thing with AI writing that people do that don't understand how to use it properly is that it typically doesn't sound like it's their own idea when AI just gives it, because it's not yours, right? You're just using AI to just generate these things, right? I think the best way I've found with AI and writing is I would literally just dump everything I'm thinking in the rawest format, right? I'm like, okay, I want this to be this way. This is what I'm thinking about it. This is what I'm doing, right? And then you can then carry that and give AI. AI will polish that for you. But guess what? It's your thoughts, right? the part of saying, okay, what's the best way I can have this portrayed? It's still my idea. It's still what I'm thinking. And then I can then let AI say, okay, maybe instead of explaining it this way, maybe you can explain it this way that's way more digestible, right? You want to say this thing. I understand what you want to say, but the way you're saying it may not necessarily be the best way. So maybe consider this other option. And it's like, I think that option is good, but how about you add this into that option because there's some nuances that I might be missing if I take this thing out, right? So that's how I use AI as I write, right? It's not giving me those ideas, right? It's not like over indexing on like, oh, try this thing, try this thing, try this and try that in there. It's like, okay, these are all my ideas. I just want you to make it in a more presentable way. I can make it more presentable, but it will take me a day. It will take me 2 days, right? So if I have my thoughts and AI is helping me make it cleaner or like make it more presentable, that's typically how I suggest people use AI. And yeah.
I think one of the problems is AI doesn't help you build taste. AI just does what you say it should do.
Yeah.
I think sometimes what I find is like somebody's writing and they don't stick to one level of abstraction throughout the document.
Yeah.
They are at high, then they go deep, then they go high, then they go deep. I took a course by this popular YouTuber, Steve Wayne, and he talked about level of abstraction. But like, if you're essentially writing at, you're talking about super high level design doc, and then right inside that same document, you put like tuning parameters for bloom filters or something like very, very, very particular. And then within that same document, you go high again. Like if you're flip-flopping like that, like AI will exceedingly give you enough. Like that's one of the things, that's a taste thing that AI will optimize for as much detail and as much complexity as possible and will generally do that. When you're using AI, you like if you're writing by yourself, you probably might be able to, if you probably know, you might know enough to do that. Maybe you don't. But like AI can easily switch levels of abstraction very quickly. And like writing with AI and not knowing like all of the guardrails to put in place, not trying to make it sound in your voice, aiming for conciseness. I think you can write with AI, but like there is a lot of work to having the document actually be good. Not just because like it is a lot of stuff that's inside your document.
The AI is not doing your work for you, right? Like it's still your thoughts, it's still your ideas, it's still how you think through, oh man, I have this thing, right? Like what actually needs to be solved. Now, I know some people that'll carry the problem and that needs to be solved and just put it inside AI, but at some point in time, when you carry the answers that the AI gives you and you go and give somebody that knows what they're doing and they chew you because there's a lot of context that's not there. So you still have to do some thinking. You still have to do some thought process reasoning as to, okay, this thing that is giving me, is it viable? Is it not viable? And then you then realize that, man, I should have just wrote the high level of this thing myself. And then if I didn't wanted it to sound a different way, then I could have then used AI. But what are some other, sorry, go ahead.
Oh yeah, it's just something else to call out is like, I think also think about like how important is this particular document, right? If it is just a run book, bro, just use AI for that stuff. Think about what you're trying to do. Think about who the audience is and think about how the audience will take the information you're writing for, right? If it's a proper design for something that is completely brand new and people are going to have very strong opinions, you probably want to write it. Like there is this very popular YouTuber, writer on LinkedIn, Carlos Aguiles. He says he writes documents that are in their version 60 or 67. He's a senior principal at Amazon. And for him, like the writing is like clearing your mind and forming a much better mental model and having people bash that mental model until it comes out to something that is really good. Obviously, this kind of writing it's 67. You can imagine it's like 20, 30 weeks of work to get the document to somewhere. And honestly, it might be a thing where he writes 70 versions of the document and Amazon doesn't ship it. But what will happen is they've thought very clearly about what it is they're trying to do and all of that. Like it's very well thought through about why a no and all of the like underlying reasons why it's a no.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think as we wrap up, one thing that I've learned is when like as you write and as you just throw everything, you're also thinking.
Yeah.
Right? If it's basically another way for you to think through whatever you're writing about. So if you're like, man, I want to do this thing, which it's something that I think more people should be doing, which is what Felix also said. But just the idea of writing more, it just helps you expand your thinking. It helps you expand your brain. And initially, it could just be one line here, one line there, one line there, one line there. Then you expand on this one, expand on this one, expand. Before you know, like it's also a process that takes time, right? And at the end of the day, it's a muscle that you have to exercise. And as you write, as you get feedback from people about what you've written, it becomes much, much better. When I first started to write my scripts for my YouTube videos and my short form videos, they were very technical because that's what I wanted. I wanted to get technical people. But after a while, I started realizing by writing very technical, I'm actually cutting away people who aren't technical, who may also want to learn. Imagine I say something and in the first 10 seconds of the video, you're like, yeah, this is way over my head, right? But if I can then ease you into it and then get you to a place where you're listening long enough for you to understand, and then I throw in one technical thing and then connect it back to what I said in the beginning, right? Like I can tell a story through writing something technical. And that's how I've grown with my writing, right? But as it relates to work, as it relates to like certain things, the more you write, the better you become. The more you write, the more you share it, the more feedback you get, the more concise you start to like learn how to fine tune all those things. Yeah.
Yeah. In closing, I think writing is essentially building a narrative to take people on a journey and giving them the context so that they can navigate like on the journey with you, right? You're taking people on a journey. So when you write, like write deliberately, think about how you will help them, how they will be able to understand, how they will be able to take the stuff that you say, how they will descend. But yeah, think of it as just we're going on a journey together and I want to guide us as best as possible and write like to basically serve people.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for watching. Thanks for listening wherever you are. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the YouTube channel if you're watching.
Questions?
We also have a form where you can ask questions and suggest episodes. Please, please, please use it. It's there. And yeah, thank you. Goodbye.